The morning sun disappeared behind massive shadows that stretched across Earth's cities. Children playing in parks stopped and pointed at the sky. Office workers pressed their faces against windows. News reporters stammered as they tried to describe what everyone could see but nobody could believe. 500 alien ships hung in Earth's atmosphere like dark metal mountains. Each vessel was the size of a city, their hulls black as space itself. Strange lights pulsed along their surfaces in patterns that hurt human eyes to watch. The ships made no sound, but their presence felt heavy, like the air before a terrible storm. Admiral Kim Dae-ho stood in the Earth Defense Command Center, watching the alien fleet through reinforced windows. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his hands gripped the metal railing until his knuckles turned white. He had prepared for this day for 30 years. Every war game, every training exercise, every sleepless night had led to this moment. "Sir, we're getting communication attempts from all over the world," reported Lieutenant Park So-jin from her station. Her voice shook slightly. "The President wants to speak with you immediately." Kim nodded but kept watching the alien ships. "How long since they arrived?" 2 hours and 17 minutes, sir. "And they haven't tried to contact us yet?" "No, sir. They're just waiting." Captain Lee Taemin burst through the command center doors, still wearing his flight suit. Sweat covered his young face. "Admiral, my patrol was 20 kilometers out when those things just appeared. 1 second empty sky, the next second they were there. Our instruments went crazy. How is that possible?" Kim finally turned from the window. "Because they want us to know how helpless we are, Captain. This is psychological warfare." The massive screens around the command center flickered. Every television, computer, and communication device on Earth did the same thing at exactly the same moment. Static filled the air, then cleared to show something that made everyone's blood run cold. The face on the screen was not human. Scaled skin covered a skull that was too long and too narrow. Yellow eyes sat too far apart, and when the creature spoke, rows of sharp teeth became visible. The voice that came from the speakers was deep and cold, like winter wind through dead trees. "People of Earth," the alien said, "I am Supreme Commander Vexter of the Galactic Hegemony. Your world has been selected for integration into our empire." President Choi Hee-ri watched the broadcast from her emergency bunker beneath the Capitol. Her advisors sat around the table like statues, afraid to move or speak. She had been president for only 2 years, but she felt the weight of humanity's survival on her shoulders. "You have 72 hours to surrender completely," Vextar continued. "Your military will be dissolved. Your governments will be replaced with hegemony administrators. Your people will serve the empire as we see fit." The alien's image changed to show views of other worlds, burning cities, enslaved populations working in massive factories, species that looked nothing like humans or the aliens, all wearing the same expression of defeat. 847 worlds have joined the hegemony, Vextar said. "Not one has resisted successfully. Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Resistance means death for your entire species." Dr. Park So-jin worked frantically at her computer station, trying to analyze the alien transmission. "Admiral, their signal is incredibly strong. They're not just hijacking our communications, they're controlling them completely. Can we block it?" Kim asked. "No, sir. Whatever technology they're using, we've never seen anything like it." On the screens, Vextar gestured with a clawed hand. "To demonstrate the futility of resistance, we will now destroy one of your orbital stations," and the image shifted to show the International Space Station, floating peacefully against the backdrop of Earth. The station housed 200 scientists and workers from 30 different countries. It was humanity's proudest achievement in space. A thin beam of green light shot from one of the alien ships. The space station simply disappeared. Not exploded, not broken apart, gone as if it had never existed. The beam lasted less than a second. Screams echoed through the Earth Defense Command Center. Several officers fell to their knees. Captain Lee punched the wall so hard his knuckles bled. 200 people, he whispered. 200 people just died. Admiral Kim's face remained calm, but inside he felt a fire starting to burn. The aliens had just made their first mistake. They had killed innocents to make a point. Now it was personal. "Your 72 hours begin now," Vextar said from the screens. "When the time expires, we will destroy your major cities one by one until you surrender." This is not negotiation. This is notification. The transmission ended, leaving Earth in stunned silence. President Choi was the first to speak. Get me a secure line to Admiral Kim, then contact the leaders of every major nation. We need an emergency meeting. Ma'am, her chief of staff said quietly, what can we possibly do? They just destroyed the space station like it was nothing. Our most powerful weapons are nuclear missiles, and those ships are too high up for us to reach. We do what humans have always done. The president replied, we survive, and we fight. 1 hour later, world leaders gathered in the most secure communication network ever created. Russian President Petrov looked exhausted. The Chinese premier appeared calm, but her hands shook slightly. The European Union representative kept checking his watch as if hoping the deadline would somehow extend itself. Admiral Kim, President Choi said, what are our options? Kim looked around the virtual meeting room at faces filled with fear and desperation. These leaders commanded the most powerful nations on Earth, but they all looked to him for answers. Honestly, ma'am, if we fight them with conventional weapons, we lose. Their technology is far beyond anything we've ever seen. So we surrender? Asked the British Prime Minister. No, Kim said firmly. We have other options that most of you don't know about. The room fell silent. President Choi leaned forward. What options, Admiral? Kim took a deep breath. What he was about to say would change everything. But Earth was out of time for secrets. 50 years ago, something crashed in Korea. Something that wasn't from Earth. We've been preparing for this day ever since. Preparing how? Demanded President Petrov. Admiral Kim smiled for the first time since the aliens arrived. By building the largest military force in the galaxy and making sure nobody knew about it. The alien fleet continued to hang in Earth's sky, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had conquered nearly 1,000 worlds. This blue planet would be no different. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. 50 years earlier, snow fell quietly on the Korean border. Private Bae Min-ho crouched in his guard post watching the empty valley between North and South Korea. It was 3 a.m, and nothing ever happened during these quiet hours. He was thinking about home when the sky caught fire. A streak of silver light tore across the darkness, trailing sparks and smoke. The object was huge, much bigger than any airplane Bae had ever seen. It screamed overhead like a wounded animal, then crashed into the valley with a sound like thunder. The impact shook the ground and lit up the night like daybreak. Within minutes, soldiers from both sides were running toward the crash site. For the first time in decades, North and South Korean forces met without shooting at each other. They were all too shocked by what they found in the smoking crater. The ship was like nothing from Earth. Smooth metal that seemed to shift color in the light. Strange symbols covered its surface. Parts of it were clearly damaged, with holes burned through the hull and green fluid leaking onto the snow. Is anyone alive in there? Asked Captain Yoon Ji-woo, the South Korean officer in charge. The North Korean commander, Major Nam Subin, was studying the strange symbols. I don't think this is from any country on Earth. They were right. When rescue teams finally cut through the hull, they found the pilot. It was small and gray with large black eyes and thin limbs. Very clearly not human. It was already dead, probably killed in the crash, but its ship's computers were still working. Within hours, both Korean governments were involved. Then China, Russia, and the United States. The crash site became the most classified location on Earth. The alien ship was carefully moved to an underground facility built specifically for studying it. Dr. Park Jae-sung led the international team of scientists. He was young then, barely 30, but he understood technology better than anyone. This is incredible, he told the assembled military leaders. This ship's database contains star maps showing thousands of inhabited worlds. We are not alone in the universe. What else does it tell us? Asked General Yoon, who had been promoted after the crash. The pilot was a scout, part of something called the Galactic Hegemony. According to these files, they control most of this section of space. They conquer worlds, enslave the populations, and strip the planets of resources. The room fell silent. President Choi's father, who led South Korea at the time, was the first to speak. Are they coming here? Dr. Park studied the alien data for several more days before answering. Eventually, yes, but not soon. Earth is far from their main territory. We probably have decades before they find us. Then we use that time, said the American general. We prepare. What followed was the greatest secret project in human history. Using technology from the alien ship, Earth's best minds began developing new weapons, new spacecraft, and new defenses. The project was called Prometheus, and it involved every major nation on Earth. The work was slow at first. Alien technology was far beyond human understanding. But gradually, breakthroughs came. Dr. Bae Minho, the former border guard who had become an engineer, figured out how their engines worked. Scientist Nam Subin cracked their energy weapons. Others learned how to build their nearly indestructible metal alloys. "We can't just copy their technology," Dr. Park warned the project leaders. "We need to improve on it. When they come, we need to be better than them, not just equal." Construction began in secret locations around the solar system. Hidden shipyards were built on the far side of the moon, where Earth's governments claimed to be mining minerals. Asteroid belts became manufacturing centers. The moons of Jupiter hid entire fleets. The alien database had revealed the locations of every hegemony world and military base. Earth strategists studied their enemy for decades, learning their tactics, their weaknesses, their patrol routes. "They're overconfident," Admiral Kim reported to the Prometheus Council 20 years after the crash. He was still a young officer then, but already showing the tactical brilliance that would make him Earth's supreme commander. "They expect easy victories. They've never faced real resistance." "Good," replied President Choi's father. "We'll give them a surprise they'll never forget." By the 40th anniversary of the crash, Earth had built the most powerful military force in the known galaxy. 12,000 warships waited in hidden bases throughout the solar system. Each ship was equipped with weapons and defenses far superior to anything the hegemony possessed. But the greatest achievement was the development of cloaking technology. Earth ships could become completely invisible, even to the most advanced sensors. The hegemony would never see them coming. "Remember," Admiral Kim told his officers during a secret briefing, "the enemy thinks we're primitive. They think we barely understand fire, let alone space travel. That false confidence is our greatest weapon." Training continued in secret for 50 years. Entire generations of pilots, soldiers, and officers prepared for a war they might never fight. Children grew up knowing they might someday defend not just Earth, but the entire galaxy from tyranny. The hardest part was keeping the secret. Millions of people worked on Prometheus projects, but the general population knew nothing. To them, humanity was still struggling to build better rockets and wondering if life existed elsewhere in the universe. Now, as alien ships darkened Earth's sky, all that preparation was about to be tested. President Choi sat in the emergency bunker, looking at the faces of world leaders who had just learned their planet's greatest secret. "You're telling us," she said to Admiral Kim, "that we've had advanced spacecraft for decades?" "Not just spacecraft, ma'am. We have the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. We've been watching the hegemony for 50 years, learning everything about them." "How many ships do we have?" asked the Russian president. 12,000 combat vessels, each one more advanced than anything in the alien fleet above us." The Chinese premier leaned forward. "And they don't know we have these ships?" "They haven't detected a single one. Our cloaking technology is beyond anything they possess." "Then why are we sitting here talking?" demanded the British Prime Minister. "Why don't we attack them right now?" Admiral Kim's expression grew serious. "Because once we reveal our capabilities, everything changes. We won't just be defending Earth anymore. The entire galaxy will look to us for leadership. We'll be starting a war that will span thousands of worlds." President Choi understood the weight of the decision. "Admiral, in your professional opinion, what should we do?" Kim stood and walked to the wall screen showing the alien fleet. "Ma'am, those ships up there have destroyed entire civilizations. They've enslaved billions of innocent beings across the galaxy. They came here expecting to add Earth to their collection of conquered worlds." He turned back to face the assembled leaders. "I say we show them what happens when they threaten a world that fights back." "You're certain we can win?" asked President Choi. "Ma'am, when this is over, the galactic hegemony will be nothing but a bad memory. I guarantee it." The president looked around the room at faces filled with new hope. 50 years of preparation had led to this moment. Humanity's greatest secret was about to become the galaxy's greatest surprise. "Admiral Kim," she said formally, "I hereby authorize you to activate Protocol Prometheus. Show these invaders what Earth is really capable of." Deep in hidden bases throughout the solar system, ancient alarms began to sound. 50 years of waiting was over. It was time for the galaxy to learn that Earth had never been silent at all. Supreme Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Earth turn slowly beneath his fleet. 48 hours had passed since his ultimatum, and the humans were running out of time. Their governments were sending desperate messages, begging for negotiations, offering to surrender piece by piece. It was always the same with primitive worlds. First came denial, then bargaining, then acceptance. The humans would surrender soon enough. "Commander," his tactical officer reported, "we're receiving multiple transmissions from the planet. They want to discuss terms." Vextar's scaled lips pulled back in what passed for a smile among his species. Let them talk. Fear makes the eventual conquest easier. On Earth, Admiral Kim watched his displays with satisfaction. The alien fleet had taken the bait perfectly. For 2 days he had fed them fake communications showing Earth's governments in panic and confusion. Meanwhile, his real fleet remained hidden and ready. "Sir," Captain Lee reported from his station, "all ships are in position. The aliens still haven't detected a single one of our vessels." "Excellent. What about their formation?" "They're maintaining the same positions, sir, spread out over the major cities, just like we predicted they would." Fleet Admiral Oh Sung-ho's voice crackled through the secure channel from his flagship, hidden behind Jupiter's largest moon. "Earth Command, this is Prometheus 1. All battle groups report ready for deployment." Kim nodded to his communications officer. "Signal all commands. Begin Phase 1. Across the solar system, 12,000 human warships began to move. They traveled through space like ghosts, their cloaking technology making them invisible to every sensor the hegemony possessed. Ships that had waited in silence for decades finally had their chance to strike. On the hegemony flagship, an officer noticed something strange. "Commander, we're detecting some unusual energy readings." Vextar barely glanced at the display. "Probably their primitive satellites failing under the stress of our presence." "Sir, the readings are getting stronger." "Ignore it. Begin charging the planet killer weapon. If they haven't surrendered in 4 hours, we'll destroy their largest city as an example." The massive weapon at the front of the flagship began to glow with deadly energy. Similar weapons on dozens of other ships did the same. In 20 minutes, they would have enough power to turn New York City into a crater. Captain Shin Bo-Ra watched from the bridge of her stealth destroyer, positioned just 2 kilometers from the alien flagship. Her ship, the Silent Thunder, was so close she could see individual lights on the enemy vessel. The aliens had no idea death was floating right next to them. "Captain," her weapons officer whispered, "targeting systems are locked on their main weapon. We can disable it with 1 shot." "Hold position," Shin replied. "We wait for the Admiral's signal." On Earth, millions of people watched the sky with growing fear. The alien ships were glowing brighter now, clearly preparing for an attack. News. Reporters spoke in hushed tones about humanity's final hours. Admiral Kim checked his chronometer. 3 minutes until the reveal. He opened a channel to all human forces throughout the solar system. "All ships, this is Earth Command. 50 years ago, we found a crashed alien scout. We learned about the hegemony's cruelty, their conquests, their complete disregard for life. Today we show them that Earth remembers. Today we show them that some worlds fight back." Major Han Yerim sat in her fighter cockpit, part of a squadron hidden in Earth's upper atmosphere. Around her, 500 of humanity's most advanced combat craft waited in perfect silence. Each fighter was more powerful than the largest hegemony destroyer. "All pilots," she said into her radio, "remember your training. These aliens have enslaved entire civilizations. Today, we free the galaxy." On the alien flagship, sensors finally detected something impossible. Energy signatures were appearing everywhere around the fleet. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of contacts materializing out of empty space. "Commander," the tactical officer's voice cracked with panic. "Ships are decloaking all around us." Vextar spun toward the main display and felt ice form in his blood. Human vessels were appearing everywhere, surrounding his fleet completely. Not small ships, but massive dreadnoughts that made his own flagship look tiny. Each one bristled with weapons he didn't recognize. "How many?" he demanded. 12,000, sir. 12,000 ships." The bridge fell silent except for the sound of Vextar's claws scraping against metal as his hands tightened on the command rail. This was impossible. The humans were primitive. Their most advanced ships couldn't even leave their own planet. Admiral Kim's voice echoed through every speaker on every hegemony ship. The translation was perfect. using the alien's own language. Supreme Commander Vextar, this is Earth Defense Command. You have 30 seconds to power down all weapons and prepare to surrender. Any hostile action will result in the immediate destruction of your entire fleet. Vextar found his voice. This is some kind of trick. Holographic projections. The humans don't have this technology. His sensor officer's hands shook as he worked his controls. Sir, these ships are real. Their energy signatures are off our scales. Their weapons are more powerful than anything in our database. On the human flagship Retribution, Fleet Admiral O studied the alien formations with experienced eyes. Their ships are impressive, he told his bridge crew, but their design is 50 years old. We know every weakness, every blind spot. Captain Zhang Minji, commanding the experimental battleship Vengeance, reported ready. Admiral, my ship's new quantum cannons are fully charged. We can cut through their flagship in seconds. Hold your fire, Captain. Let's give them a chance to be smart about this. Commander Lim Dong-hyun coordinated the massive fleet from his tactical station. 12,000 ships moved like a single organism, each one perfectly positioned for maximum effectiveness. It was the result of decades of planning and training. Sir, he reported to Admiral O, the aliens are powering up their weapons. All ships prepare for combat, O ordered. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget. Vextar's mind raced through impossible calculations. Even if these ships were real, they were human. Humans were weak, cowardly creatures who had barely learned to leave their own world. They couldn't possibly stand against the might of the hegemony. All ships, he commanded. Open fire. Destroy these primitives. 500 hegemony warships unleashed everything they had. Energy beams that could crack planets lit up space between Earth and the alien fleet. Missiles that had destroyed entire civilizations streaked toward human ships. The barrage lasted 30 seconds. When the light faded, every human ship was still there, completely undamaged. Their shields had absorbed the entire attack without even flickering. Impossible, Vextar whispered. Admiral Kim's voice came again, colder this time. You had your chance, Commander. Now you face the consequences. The human fleet opened fire. What followed wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration of technological superiority so complete that it redefined warfare itself. Human weapons sliced through hegemony shields like they didn't exist. Ships that had conquered hundreds of worlds were cut apart by energy beams they couldn't even detect until impact. The aliens tried to retreat, but human ships appeared in front of them, behind them, all around them. They moved through space in ways that violated every law of physics the hegemony understood. In 17 minutes, it was over. 500 alien ships were either destroyed or disabled. Not one human vessel had been damaged. Vextar found himself alone on a bridge filled with smoke and sparks. His mighty flagship, pride of the hegemony fleet, was a drifting wreck. Through his cracked view screen, he could see human Marines boarding his surviving ships. This is Admiral Kim of Earth Defense Command, came the voice that would haunt his nightmares. Supreme Commander Vextar, you are now our prisoner. Your fleet is destroyed. Your invasion of Earth has failed. How? Vextar managed to whisper. We've been watching you for 50 years, Kim replied. We know everything about the hegemony. Your ships, your weapons, your tactics. We know about every world you've conquered, every species you've enslaved. The alien commander felt something he had never experienced before, complete helpless fear. What do you want from us? Kim's reply carried across space to every human ship, and would soon spread to every world in the galaxy. We want you to understand something, Commander. Earth doesn't just defend itself, we defend everyone. Your days of conquest are over. The galaxy has new protectors now. As human ships secured their prisoners and salvaged alien technology, the greatest secret in Earth's history became the most important truth in the galaxy's future. The humans had revealed themselves, and they were not what anyone expected. News of the battle above Earth spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On worlds that had lived under hegemony rule for centuries, enslaved populations looked up at the stars with something they had forgotten existed: hope. In the depths of space, Admiral O's flagship received intelligence reports from captured alien databases. What his officers found made their blood run cold. "Admiral," reported Commander Lim from his intelligence station. "The scope of hegemony atrocities is beyond anything we imagined. They've completely destroyed 47 species. Enslaved billions more." Captain Jiang studied the horrific files on her display. Images of burning worlds, enslaved children, entire civilizations wiped out for resources. "Sir, they have prison planets. Whole worlds where they keep slaves who tried to resist." Admiral Kim's voice came through the communication system from Earth. "All ships, we've finished interrogating the hegemony prisoners. The intelligence they've provided changes everything." On Earth, President Choi convened an emergency session of world leaders. The conference room screens showed star maps marked with red dots representing conquered worlds, yellow dots for slave planets, and black dots for species driven to extinction. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Kim began, "we are not just dealing with an invasion force. The Galactic Hegemony is the largest criminal organization in known space. They have been committing genocide for over 1,000 years." The British Prime Minister stared at the massive scope of alien control. "How many worlds are we talking about?" 847 conquered systems. Approximately 200 billion enslaved beings. They control 1/3 of this galactic sector. President Choi leaned forward. "What are you recommending, Admiral?" Kim's expression was grim but determined. "Ma'am, we cannot simply defend Earth and ignore the rest of the galaxy. Every day we wait, more innocents die. I'm requesting authorization to begin liberation operations." "Liberation operations?" asked the Chinese premier. "We're going to free every world the hegemony has conquered. All of them." The room fell silent. What Admiral Kim was proposing would mean war on a scale never before imagined. Not just defending one world, but liberating hundreds. Russian President Petrov was the first to speak. "Admiral, do we have the resources for such an operation?" "Sir, we have 12,000 ships and the most advanced technology in the galaxy. More importantly, we have detailed intelligence on every hegemony military installation, patrol route, and defensive position. They've never faced an enemy who knew them this well." Fleet Admiral O reviewed the tactical situation from his flagship. His fleet had grown to 15,000 ships as hidden reserves joined the main force. Each vessel was crewed by officers and soldiers who had trained their entire lives for this moment. "Captain Shin," he said to the commander of Silent Thunder, "your ship performed perfectly in the Earth battle. I'm giving you command of the First Liberation Task Force." Captain Shin Bora felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. "What's our target, sir?" "The Keth system. 3 planets, 2 billion slaves, minimal defenses. It's close enough to Earth to ensure rapid resupply, but far enough into hegemony space to send a message." "When do we leave?" "As soon as Earth Command gives the authorization." On Earth, the debate continued for hours. Some leaders worried about the cost of such a massive military operation. Others questioned whether humanity had the right to interfere in galactic politics. Admiral Kim addressed their concerns directly. "With respect, ladies and gentlemen, we lost the luxury of non-interference the moment those ships appeared over our cities. The hegemony knows about Earth now. They know we have advanced technology. Even if we wanted to hide again, we can't." President Choi understood the implications. "You're saying they'll send larger fleets?" "Yes, ma'am. According to the prisoners, the force we defeated was just a scouting expedition. The hegemony has fleets of 50,000 ships. They'll keep coming until we're destroyed, or they are." "Then we fight," she said simply. "Not just for Earth, but for everyone they've oppressed." "Admiral Kim, you have full authorization to begin liberation operations." Within hours, Earth's hidden fleets began moving toward their targets. Captain Shin led her task force of 500 ships toward the Keth system, while other groups prepared strikes against prison planets and military installations throughout hegemony space. The journey to Keth took 3 days at maximum faster-than-light speed. During the trip, Shin studied intelligence reports on her targets. The system contained 3 worlds: SciFiPrime, an industrial planet where slaves manufactured weapons; Keth Secondary, an agricultural world worked by captured farmers; and Keith Minor, a mining colony extracting rare metals from asteroid fields. "Captain," her tactical officer reported, "we're detecting 43 hegemony ships in the system, mostly patrol vessels and cargo transports. Any large warships?" "1 heavy cruiser stationed at Keth Prime. The rest are smaller vessels." Shin smiled grimly. 43 ships against our 500. I almost feel sorry for them. Lieutenant Colonel Kang Woo-jin prepared his Marine units for the ground assault. His soldiers were equipped with powered armor and weapons derived from captured alien technology. They had trained for decades to fight in alien environments against non-human enemies. Remember, he told his troops, our mission is liberation, not conquest. The beings on those planets are slaves, not enemies. Some may be hostile because they don't understand we're there to help them. Major Han Ye-rim led her fighter squadrons through final pre-combat checks. Her pilots were the best Earth had ever trained, flying ships that could outmaneuver anything the hegemony possessed. All fighters, this is Wing Commander Han. Today we don't just fight for Earth, we fight for every slave who dreams of freedom. The task force arrived at Keth just as the system's star began to rise over the primary planet. 43 hegemony ships faced 500 human vessels that appeared out of nowhere like avenging spirits. The local hegemony commander didn't even have time to send a distress signal. Human ships moved through his formation like sharks through minnows, disabling engines and weapon systems with surgical precision. Not a single enemy vessel was destroyed. Admiral Kim wanted prisoners for intelligence, and slaves needed their oppressors' ships to escape. This is Captain Shin of the Earth Liberation Fleet, she broadcast on all frequencies. Hegemony forces in this system, you are ordered to surrender immediately. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. The hegemony heavy cruiser tried to run for the system's edge, hoping to escape and warn other fleets. It traveled exactly 47 kilometers before human fighters disabled its engines and dragged it back to Keth Prime. Ground operations began immediately. Shuttles carrying liberation forces descended toward slave facilities, while orbital bombardments eliminated hegemony military installations. The attacks were so precise that not a single slave facility was damaged. Colonel Kang's Marines found conditions on the planets worse than their worst intelligence estimates. Slave barracks that housed beings from dozens of different species in conditions that barely kept them alive. Factories where children as young as 5 operated dangerous machinery. Mining operations where workers died from exhaustion and were simply replaced with fresh prisoners. Command, Kang reported from Keth Prime. The situation here is beyond horrific. Recommend immediate medical assistance and evacuation for the worst cases. The freed slaves initially cowered in fear when human soldiers appeared. Many species had never seen humans before, and some thought they were just different hegemony enforcers. But when the humans began destroying slave barracks and distributing food, word spread quickly. Captain Zhang Minji coordinated the massive humanitarian operation from her command ship. Medical teams establish field hospitals in sectors 7 through 12. Engineering units begin restoring the agricultural facilities on Keth Secondary. These people need food and medical care immediately. The liberation of Keth system took exactly 18 hours. 43 hegemony ships were captured, their crews imprisoned. 2 billion slaves were freed, though many would need months or years of medical care to recover from their treatment. But the most important result was psychological. Word of the liberation spread throughout hegemony space faster than their military communications could suppress it. Slaves on hundreds of worlds learned that someone was fighting back. Someone was winning. Admiral O received reports from similar operations throughout the galaxy. Human task forces had simultaneously struck at 12 different systems, freeing over 10 billion slaves in coordinated attacks. Not one liberation fleet had suffered significant casualties. Sir, Commander Lim reported, we're receiving transmissions from formerly enslaved species. They want to join our forces, and how many? Thousands of ships, Admiral. Hundreds of thousands of volunteers. Species we've liberated are offering everything they have to help free others. Fleet Admiral O smiled for the first time since the war began. Very well. Begin integration procedures. Earth didn't start this war to fight alone. On Earth, President Choi addressed the world. My fellow humans, today we took the first step toward freeing an entire galaxy from tyranny. We didn't seek this responsibility, but we will not abandon it. The universe is watching. History is watching. 6 months after the first liberation, the galaxy burned with the fire of revolution. What began as Earth's defense had become the greatest war in galactic history. Human fleets, now numbering over 50,000 ships, struck deep into hegemony territory, while former slaves joined the fight in numbers that amazed even Admiral Kim. General Kim Soo-ah stood on the bridge of her command ship. watching orbital bombardment eliminate the last hegemony installations on SciFiPrime. This had been a slave world for 800 years. Today it was free. "General," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender signals from the remaining hegemony forces. The planet is ours." "Excellent. Begin landing operations. Medical teams first, then food distribution." Kim Sua had led liberation forces on 47 worlds. Each victory brought new allies, new ships, and new determination to finish what Earth had started. Former slaves didn't just want freedom, they wanted revenge against their oppressors. Admiral Yu Chan-ho commanded the largest human fleet ever assembled, preparing for the final assault on the hegemony homeworld. His massive force included not just human ships, but vessels from dozens of liberated species. The alliance Earth had accidentally created now controlled half the galaxy. "Admiral," Captain Lee reported from the flagship's tactical station, "intelligence confirms that Supreme Admiral Thekvar has concentrated his remaining forces around the homeworld. Over 90,000 ships, and how many do we have?" 120,000, sir, plus orbital defense platforms that we've captured and converted." Yu smiled grimly. The hegemony had spent 1,000 years building their empire. Earth's alliance would tear it down in a single battle. Dr. Lee Yunji worked frantically in her laboratory aboard the research vessel Discovery. Using captured hegemony technology, she had developed weapons that could disable entire fleets without destroying them. The key was precision. Earth wanted to capture enemy ships, not annihilate them. "The new quantum disruptor arrays are ready," she reported to Admiral Kim over secure channels. "We can disable their weapons and engines without killing the crews." "Perfect, Doctor. We'll need those ships after the war ends." On Earth, President Choi addressed a joint session of world leaders and representatives from liberated worlds. The chamber was filled with beings from dozens of different species, all united by their shared experience of hegemony oppression. "Friends," she began, "when alien ships first appeared over Earth, we thought we were fighting for our survival. We didn't realize we were starting a war for the soul of the galaxy itself." Cheers erupted from the assembled delegates. Representatives of species that had been slaves for centuries now sat as equals in Earth's halls of power. Today, Admiral Yu begins the final assault on the hegemony homeworld. When this battle is over, no being in the galaxy will live in fear of slavery again. Colonel Park Sang-min led his Special Forces team through the corridors of a captured hegemony command station. Their mission was simple but crucial: locate and capture the hegemony's top military commanders before they could escape. "Target is 3 levels down," his tactical officer whispered into the radio. "Heavy security, but nothing our equipment can't handle." Park's team moved like shadows through alien architecture. Their powered armor made them nearly invisible, and their weapons could cut through the strongest hegemony defenses. They reached the command center just as enemy officers were trying to destroy critical intelligence files. "Surrender now," Park announced in perfect hegemony language, "and you will be treated according to galactic conventions of war." The alien commanders raised their clawed hands in defeat. They had heard what happened to hegemony officers who cooperated with Earth forces. They lived. Those who resisted rarely survived. In the depths of space, the largest battle in galactic history was about to begin. The hegemony homeworld of Vexithara Major was surrounded by defensive installations that had never been tested in combat. They were about to face their ultimate trial. Admiral Yu studied the enemy positions from his flagship. 90,000 hegemony ships formed a defensive sphere around their homeworld. Massive space stations bristled with weapons that could destroy planets. Energy barriers protected the most important installations. "All fleet commanders," he announced on the command channel, "remember our objective. We're here to liberate, not to destroy. Disable their weapons, capture their ships, minimize casualties on both sides." "Admiral," asked Captain Jang from her battleship, "what if they refuse to surrender? Then we show them why the galaxy chose freedom over slavery." The battle began with a display of human technological superiority that terrified the hegemony defenders. Earth ships didn't charge into combat. They appeared everywhere at once, materializing from cloaking fields in perfect formations that surrounded every enemy position. Dr. Lee's quantum disruptor arrays fired their first shots, sending waves of energy that passed harmlessly through ship hulls but completely disabled weapons and engines. Thousands of hegemony vessels found themselves helpless, drifting in space while human boarding parties approached. Supreme Admiral Thekvar watched his mighty fleet being systematically neutralized without suffering a single destroyed ship. The humans weren't trying to kill his forces. They were capturing them alive along with all their technology and intelligence. "This is impossible," he muttered from his command bridge. "No species is this powerful." His tactical officer's voice shook with fear. "Sir, they're not just powerful. They're merciful. They could have destroyed us all in the first 10 minutes. The battle lasted 6 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. Hegemony ships surrendered in groups of hundreds as their crews realized resistance was futile. Their most advanced weapons couldn't penetrate human shields. Their fastest ships couldn't escape human pursuit. Their strongest fortresses fell to boarding parties they never saw coming. When the fighting ended, Admiral Yu found himself in command of the largest fleet ever assembled. Over 200,000 ships from dozens of species, all united under Earth's leadership. "Sir," Commander Lim reported, "Supreme Admiral Thekvar is requesting permission to surrender formally. Bring him aboard. It's time to discuss the future of the galaxy." Thekvar entered the human flagship's conference room expecting to be executed or imprisoned. Instead, he found Admiral Yu sitting across from representatives of species the hegemony had enslaved for centuries. "Supreme Admiral," Yu began, "your empire is finished. Your fleets are captured, your worlds are liberated, and your government no longer exists." Thekvar nodded slowly. "What happens to my people now? That depends on your cooperation. The galaxy needs to heal from 1,000 years of hegemony rule. Your people can be part of that healing, or they can spend the rest of their lives in prison colonies. What do you want from us?" Admiral Yu gestured to the beings around the table. "These representatives come from worlds your empire destroyed. They will decide your fate, not us." For the next 3 days, former slaves sat in judgment of their oppressors. Some called for revenge, but most chose a more difficult path: rehabilitation and rebuilding. President Choi received the news of victory while meeting with Earth's top scientists and engineers. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. "Ma'am," Admiral Kim reported from the front lines, "we've liberated every hegemony world. Over 500 billion beings are now free. But they'll need food, medical care, and protection while they rebuild their societies. What about the hegemony survivors? Most have surrendered peacefully. We're establishing rehabilitation programs on their homeworld. The goal is to transform them from conquerors into productive members of galactic society." "And the former slave worlds?" "They're organizing into a new government structure. They want to call it the Galactic Liberation Alliance, with Earth as the founding member." President Choi smiled. When alien ships had first appeared over Earth, she had feared for humanity's survival. Now she was being asked to help govern an entire galaxy. "Tell them we accept," she said. "But make it clear that Earth doesn't want to rule the galaxy. We want to protect it." Years later, the story of Earth's war against the hegemony became legend throughout the galaxy. Children of 100 different species learned about the silent planet that had hidden its strength until freedom itself was threatened. Admiral Kim, now head of the Galactic Defense Force, stood in his office looking out at Earth's blue oceans. His walls were covered with medals and honors from grateful worlds. But his proudest possession was a simple photograph of the crashed alien scout that had started everything 50 years ago. "Admiral," his aide announced, "the Senate representatives from the Outer Rim are here for their defense briefing." Kim nodded. The galaxy was at peace now, but vigilance was the price of freedom. Earth's fleets patrolled trade routes and protected new colonies. Human technology helped former slave worlds rebuild. The alliance grew stronger every year. "Send them in," Kim said. "We have work to do." Outside his window, the first interstellar passenger ships of the day were lifting off from Earth's spaceports. Beings from hundreds of worlds came to visit the planet that had freed them all. Tourism had replaced warfare as Earth's primary contact with the galaxy. But in hidden bases throughout the solar system, Earth's most advanced warships waited in readiness.